Yeah. Welcome and thank you for your patience, everybody, on this next Impact from Home. And today we're very happy to have Bertrand with us, who is the founder of Impact, and Harry Forman, who is a member of Net Impact Amsterdam, will be running this interview. So I'm going to pass it off to him, but please let's make this as engaging as possible. So if you have any questions along the way, feel free to throw them into the chat box, and Harry and I will keep an eye on that. So without further ado, I'll pass it on to you, Harry.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kathy, and thank you, Bertrand, for joining us. Sorry for the confusion, everybody. Yeah, today we're just going to be speaking with Bertrand Gacon about his company Impact, which is based in Switzerland. I'm not going to talk too much about exactly what they do because I will let Bertrand do that, and we'll go through a few different questions that we have pre-prepared. And then if anyone else is interested, please feel free to jump into the chat box, ask some questions, and we hopefully can get everything answered. I think we'll last about 40-45 minutes today. And yeah, absolutely feel free to jump in and be part of this. So Bertrand, without further ado, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your company, Impact.
Sure, thanks, Harry, and it's nice to meet you all. Sorry for the confusion when we started. Yeah, so Impact is as Harry was saying, it's a company based in Switzerland. We're very much engaged in impact measurement, and we want to do that for companies that have the biggest impact in the world, and that is the large companies. So we have agreed to bring impact investing into the listed equity and listed bond world, and develop the same kind of methodology and tools that we have used in the impact investing space for the more mainstream investments. The idea behind Impact actually came from the frustration we had, Stephen and myself, the two co-founders, when we were active in sustainable finance for the last 15 years, not having proper tools to really assess the impact of large companies. We in the financial industry, we've been using those for probably more than 20 years now. And they always come with the same lists that are very well known now by most of the players. The first one is, of course, the fact that they talk more about the CSR of the company, and the policies and the practices, rather than really their impacts. But also they based on the single expert model, so they basically find questionnaire companies, and the companies are the one actually answering those questions. And yeah,
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. We're having a really hard time hearing you well. Is there maybe just try to speak either closer to the mic or something else to maybe try and make it a bit clearer? Sorry to interrupt.
If I get closer to the mic now, like that? Not really.
Sometimes the headphones work best if you have a pair of headphones.
All right, let me try. Is that better now?
It is better, but I was still saying definitely not perfect.
Okay. I'm actually using the same setup than the one I have when I do my team meeting, so that should be okay.
Yeah, this is definitely better. That's sounding better.
Now?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. All right, so yeah, so there's some limits to the ESG data that are now widely used into the financial industry, and they haven't really gotten where we need it to be, which means really transforming asset allocation and making sure the capital is flowing towards really the companies that are having the most positive impact on the planet and society. And so we decided to basically invent something new that would address all of these issues, that will make sure that the data doesn't come from the company themselves, but from civil society and many other sources. And we did that well by launching Impact, which is a collaborative platform that basically gathers thousands of contributors that we train. I know that Harry went through the training program and the certification program, but the idea that we give the skills to contributors to do a proper impact analysis, and then we have a whole vetting process, and we then publish all of that research on the platform, where any one of us can go read that research and contribute to the rating, because that's the second part of the program. is that based on that vetted and documented research, we ask people to basically give their own ratings, and we consolidate all of these ratings to form the global impact of the companies. And that is what is making our approach different from other participants. Is really focused on impact, and it's really crowdsourced and open source in terms of process.
Fantastic. We just have a quick request to repeat the initial statement that you said, because it was a little fuzzy coming through at the beginning. Just your overall mission at what Impact is doing.
Yeah, so it's really an impact measurement company. We do want to accelerate the transition towards an impact-driven economy, and we do that by providing robust, impact data and impact research, and bring that in the hands of investors, of consumers, of economic leaders, decision makers, in the most efficient and less costly way as possible.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that. And as being, like you mentioned, I am participating within the certification program that you guys are offering for analysis, for becoming a certified impact analyst. And a lot of these individuals that are going through the certification process, can you speak a little bit about that process and who these individuals are and how you go through training them?
Sure. So that's collective intelligence. So what we need is really a diversity in the number and type of people that are joining the program. We basically have created that certification more than a year ago now. We started in August last year. We have around 2,000 people that are registering to that certification every single week now. So it has become very popular. It's entirely free. And the idea is really to give people skills that they need to do impact analysis in a way. And people are joining from very, really any background. They be based in more than 60 different countries now. They come from various educational backgrounds. But they all share that passion for sustainability. I mean, what got them to register to the training is that their common interest and passion for sustainability and impact, and they usually got to the training for that reason. And those who succeed usually are people in between 25 to 45 years old. Most of them are already active professionally. Some of them would become impact analysts on a full-time basis, so they will make it their main professional activity to actually write research and publish research on the platform. But most of the participants really do that as a side activity and not their core one.
Absolutely. And so, as I'm understanding it, and just to recap, in my own mind, it's a lot of individuals across the world that are writing these different impact analyses on different companies. And is there a specific framework that you guys go through to train them? What are they writing on? Are there measurable or quantifiable aspects to it?
Absolutely, yeah. So we try to leverage on existing frameworks and existing standards, not to reinvent the wheel, because we are an open source type of model. We really try not to have anything that is too profit-free in terms of methodology and scoring system. It has to remain very transparent. It has to remain very open. So we basically use 3 different frameworks. The first one is the IMP, the Impact Management Project. That's the one that we really use to support the analytical, I would say the analytical process. So that is this program with 5 dimensions that details, how you should look at impact. And measure the what, the who, the how much, and the contribution and risk. So that again is a standard that we have not invented ourselves, but that we're using just to make sure that everyone publishing analyses on the platform follows the same methodology in a way. The second one that we're using is the social performance pathway, which is something that we use to make sure people do not confuse intention, input, output, outcome, and impact, right? Which are all different things. And it's very important that we get people to really write about impact and not just intention or input. And the third one that we're using, of course, is the SDG, and we're using this one really as a reporting framework for people to be able to classify their impact analysis. We're not using the SDGs as a way of developing the research and organizing the research, but rather as a reporting tool ex post, for people to classify and being able to organize that on the platform.
Great. And as you're aggregating all of this data from, like we said, a vast group of certified individuals that are writing the impact analysis on these different companies across the world, is there any struggles that you've come across, or how are you vetting all this data that is coming through to make sure that it is usable? You know, I think as in the world that we live in today, big data can help solve a lot of problems, but making sure that data is correct and usable is also another issue that we run into. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is, of course, a big challenge. I mean, collective intelligence is very powerful, but also very dangerous. And you have to make sure that you have the right quality control mechanism if you want that to really work properly. And we have been, we had to invest significantly in the reviewing process to make sure that, the quality and the validity and the credibility of whatever is published on the platform is up to the standard that we have given to ourselves. So there's many ways we ensure quality into the platform. The first one is really through the training itself, by making sure that people go through a certification program. You need to be certified in order to publish a research on the platform. So it's not everyone that can do that, and that's something we actually probably change and we're naive about. When we started, we thought that it would be like a very open platform where anyone can come and create and publish those research. And in fact, this is not what happened. We realized that not everyone has the skills, so we introduced that certification program. And even when people have the skill, we still need to make sure that they use them properly. So certification is the first stage. Then anyone that actually is writing and analyzing is being submitted on the platform first, but it's not yet published. It goes through a reviewing process. And so we have a team of instructors and reviewers that will check that information, that will provide feedback to the writers if anything is wrong, if the sources are not good enough, if the information is not quantified enough. There are many, limits or mistakes that we come across very regularly. And we keep training back the authors and the writers to make sure that they constantly improve. And only when they get to the right level of quality, and when we're sure that the data is correct and that the sources are reliable, then the research is published on the platform. So there's a very, I would say, resource-intensive process of verification, fact-checking, and training of the analysts to make sure that what gets out of the process is of high quality, is credible, is reputable. And that's very important to us, because we coming from the financial industry. We really wanted to have better quality data to make our investment decision. So the idea is not to replace that by something that is not robust in terms of quality and trustworthiness.
Absolutely. And just to kind of take a little step back, as you were creating the company, you and your founders came up with an idea of crowdsourcing. What decided? I know you mentioned briefly in your opening statement that you had previously worked in the impact investing space, but what led to saying, we're going to stop doing it on our own and look for more of a crowdsourcing mentality?
Well, that was an idea that came quite early in the process. I mean, we realized that part of the issue with the existing system is that it was a single expert model, and it's very hard for one single brain, even if it's a genius, to really grasp the many impacts that that very large company can have on the planet and society. if you think about Google, for instance, they have many services, they really transform our world in many different ways, and they have positive and negative impacts for different communities as they go. And being able to really document all of that and value all of that and give a score to all of that for one single human brain is really not possible, actually. So we knew from the beginning that we had to develop a model that was a lot more powerful than single experts. And the two areas we actually looked at were artificial intelligence and collective intelligence. And I've mentioned that we choose collective intelligence, which of course opens up the capacity to look for many different sources and to have many diverse opinions brought together. But we also actually using artificial intelligence in our process, and we use that to actually support the work of analysts by providing them with the right topics and the right sources, and reducing the time they spend to do their research. So that's something, Harry, you hadn't had the chance to use when you went through your own program. It was not yet developed at that stage, but it's something that is now up and running. And analysts today, they have access to that artificial intelligence to support their work. But that was kind of, I mean, it was not for the sake of doing the thing differently. It was just because we believe that the only good way of measuring something as complex as the impact of a large company is to pick the brains of potentially thousands and thousands of contributors.
Absolutely. And then once this data is then, compiled together on your website, it is public for everybody to see. Do you, as far as stakeholders that you have, are you in contact with any specific investment companies now that are using the data that you have gathered for their own specific investments?
Yeah, we do have clients already, and we do. Our business model is really to sell the data to the financial industry so that they can make better investment decision, and this is also a huge leverage to really transform the economy. We know the power of the financial industry when it comes as changing and transforming the economy. So we want to leverage that power. So we do have a few clients, but to be completely transparent, we have really been focusing until now at building up the content creation machinery in a way, making sure that we got the reviewing process right, making sure that we had a model that can attract a huge number of contributors and participants. And this is what we have today. And now we're focusing on basically expanding the coverage and building a pretty deep and broad database before we can actually go and sell it to the market. We have to build the data before we can sell it, and we've been focusing on that today.
Absolutely, yeah. Being connected with some of these, and I understand, you're building up the database, you're going and then ultimately looking to sell that data to these companies. But that makes you very connected with the impact space within Switzerland and, outside other European countries. How do you see this market evolving within Switzerland and then as well compared to the other countries, around us?
Well, I've been myself active in sustainable finance and impact investing for the last 15 years. I created these offerings at different banks, and I cannot be more surprised and happy to see how much the landscape has evolved in the last maybe 2 to 3 years. For more than 12 years, what we were doing, we were just those crazy tree huggers. A few of us, trying to push the agenda, and it remained very niche. But I would say probably starting in 2015, where we had at the same time the SDGs, the Paris Agreement, the Dieselgate, many things happened this year that actually started to trigger some change in the financial industry. And ever since that time, I mean, the acceleration has been quite spectacular in a way. And at that time, 15 years ago, it was hard to find banks that really had anything to do with sustainable finance. Now it becomes very hard to find any bank that does not do any form of sustainable finance. It's really becoming mainstream. But at the same time, this is becoming mainstream. I think we're not making enough progress in terms of really deeply transforming our economic system. Why? Because the ESG data that is being used and that is really supporting, that is the underlying data that is used to do all that integration of environmental and social criteria does tell you very little about the impact of companies. And I give that example during the training and the certification program of some very counterintuitive ESG data. And I give this example of Repsol, the Spanish oil giant, which is one of the companies that has the highest score when you use the traditional ESG data. And that for good reason. I mean, this company is very good at CSR. They treat their employees very well. They make sure that their supply chain is controlled. They sign all the international agreements. It's a company that does things right, but it is not a company that does the right thing. And what we try to measure at Impact is not just whether a company do things right, but whether they do the right thing. And if you just add up that lens, that gives you a very different picture and a very different score. And then a company whose core business is oil extraction can no longer appear as one of the most positive companies in the world. Not today, not anymore. And this is what we need. And as long as the financial industry is not using this type of data, well, they keep supporting and financing business models that are not the one we need to finance anymore. And this is why it is so important to get the data right, because as long as you don't have this properly sorted, then the financial industry just, even though they would like to do something good and better integrate those dimensions, they miss a large part of the picture because they're only focusing on practices and policies, and they're basically agnostic about the core business and the core impacts. So this is what we're trying to change, really.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, it's understandable. Figuring out how a company's making an impact, whether it's their normal business practices or what they're doing on the side with their CSR. A question from one of our members has to do more with how this data is being accumulated. If a company is posting posting about their operating procedures, really, what are we able to find out what they're not posting? Where's this data coming from? If it's all coming from a financial report or a year-end or quarterly report, then we're just getting our information from those companies. How are the analysts actually finding the real information and the numbers that are important to make these impact analysis?
Not easily, I'm afraid. This is a very good question. I mean, today, one of the challenges we have is that there is far more information and data available that is being pushed by the companies themselves on all the good they do than you could find, data and reports, solid data and reports about their broader impacts, including their negative impacts. And so all analysts, they have just to basically dig and find those sources. They are out there most of the time. You find reports from NGOs, press articles, reliable sources of information that are independent from the company, that will track all of those reports, all of those impacts, and then help you document. It is easier with large companies. It is easier with consumer goods companies, but you can still find the data if you take the time to research. But it takes time, and it's not so easy to get access to all these reports. But it's not because it's not easy that it's not the right thing to do. Again, we cannot just rely on companies to measure their own impact. And most of the reporting frameworks that have been developed over time, just like the GRI framework, with all the goods that the GRI and all the benefits that the GRI has brought to the industry, again, it's still too much focused on practices and policies today. We need to have the same kind of format for the broader impact, but I'm not sure the company themselves are actually in the best position to really understand their own impact. I'm not sure that the guys at Google, for example, or at Facebook are the best one to really measure their deep impact on democracy or strengths of institution or polarization of opinion. I mean, sometimes independent think tanks, NGOs, civil society is much better equipped to actually analyze this impact and report back on this impact. And this is the kind of information that our analysts are looking at and looking for when they do their research. And this is also why, because it's so difficult, that we have developed our own artificial intelligence models to help them with the search, because that is not easy to find out this information.
No, it's very difficult, right? I mean, you have to rely on whistleblowers or NGOs to come up and do their initial research before your analysts can actually make the assessment on the company. As far as the vision of Impact, I mean, you said your next steps are really to continue to grow and gain more data, but then also partner with other programs or other institutions like the investors. Where do you see your company in the next 5 to 10 years within the impact space? And then even on top of that, how do you see the space growing within the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, well, this is a crazy project, and we know the ambition is really high, but what we would like to do really is to be the Wikipedia of impact in a way. So we want every single citizen of the planet to be able to access to verified information about the impact of companies for free on the platform whenever they need that. So as future employees, as consumers, as citizens, anyone should be able to get access to that, because this is how we will get the scale of transformation that we need. We're leveraging the power of the financial industry, but at the end of the day, our true mission is to really to make sure that we produce that high quality data, and we put it in the hands of every single citizen in the world for free. That's really our mission. And so for us, if I want to try to dream at where we should be in 5 to 10 years, well, we should be exactly where Wikipedia is today, and potentially have not just hundreds of thousands, but million and maybe even billion of people using that data every single day or week or whenever they need that to make informed decisions about the company they want to interact with. So that's the big plan. Now, whether we succeed or not, I think the trend in the industry is already set, and I don't think there is no turning back there. I mean, people are realizing that not only sustainability is a must-have and not just a nice-to-have, but they're also realizing that this is the only sensible economic model. I mean, in terms, even if you're not an environmentalist, or if you're if saving the planet or improving inequality is not what is driving you, even for just the sake of pure economic performance, I think more and more people realizing that well-managed, profitable, long-term company goes hand in hand with sustainability. And so the biggest shift that I see in the industry and in economy today is that we're gradually moving away from that absurd dichotomy where it's either you make profit or you do good, into something which is a lot more convergent and a lot more integrated, where we're now questioning what is the raison d'être, what is the real mission of companies, and companies have to explain what is their value to society, what is their value to the world. And if they struggle to really explain that, then they're probably a company that is not going to be around for very long anymore.
To go back a little bit, what you said about impact and how you want it to be the Wikipedia of the future. Wikipedia has had issues with personal opinion, that kind of thing, but also it creates a diverse background of people's understandings of the world. And specifically with your impact, you have a variety of personalities and individuals across the world. Do you see that personality coming through these impact analysis? And if so, does it affect or change what you're seeing come through from your analysts?
Yeah, of course. This is there is no perfect model, and collective intelligence, as I mentioned, it has its benefit, it also has its limits. One of them might be just like in Wikipedia, the fact that sometimes we might see some opinions being maybe influencing the way analysts and ratings are being made on the platform. So you get to be aware of that and to take the measures that are able to basically control these kind of issues. But you should also realize that the alternative is much worse in a way, because the way it works today, that it's one single person that is basically applying his own subjectivity to decide, whether the score of Nestle should be, 85 or 42. And those are the single experts that works with ESG data providers today. And we're trying to replace that single expert model by something that does not remove entirely subjectivity, but make sure that, we actually consolidating thousands and thousands of subjectivities that are, self-compensating each other, so that what we end up with is something which is closest to objectivity than asking just one single person when they think about Nestle's impact on obesity or Coca-Cola's impact on plastic pollution, for instance. And if you get those mechanisms right, then there's a huge academic evidence that shows that the quality of the ratings you're able to get, if you have a diverse group of raters, if they vote completely independently, is actually very accurate and very robust. And this is our model, and we're taking steps to make sure that we control what's going on the platform. Again, we have no interest at being the next TripAdvisor. We don't just want, to publish score for the sake of publishing score. We want those scores to really reflect the true impact of those companies, because we want asset allocation to be based on high quality data. Otherwise, we're not changing the world. We're just, giving the wrong information for people to act. And if we really want to transform the economy and that the economy goes in the right direction, then there is no other solution that trying to give the most accurate data for people to take action.
Mm-hmm. And with these scores that the companies are being rated through the individuals that come on and rate the impacts, there's positives and there's negatives, right? The question from one of our members is, how do those compare? Can a positive aspect of a company outweigh the negative aspects to give it a higher score, or vice versa?
Well, that's a good question. If you go to the platform, you'd find out how that works. But in a nutshell, we basically granularize every single impact topic for every company. So we never ask someone to tell us, what is the impact of Nestle. It will take you 10 years to actually report on that and trying to grab that. So everyone is actually writing on one single topic, and everyone is only rating on one single topic at a time. So you go on the platform and you find a note that is describing the impact that Nestle has on obesity, for instance. And then this one is likely to be negative, actually. And people, when they read the document, then they can decide, two things. The first thing, they have to rate the impact in terms of how positive, how negative is that. So from -5 to +5. And the second one that they need to do is to say, okay, how big is that impact? Is it finally a small impact or a very huge impact on the planet and society? And they have to do that according to 3 dimensions, which is the breadth, the depth, and the persistence of the impact. So for each type of impact, Nestle obesity, Nestle water, Nestle nutrition, Nestle climate change, Nestle, you name it, right? We have dozens of analyses that have been published on Nestle so far. We then have a scale of impact, which is not determined by us, but it's determined by each of the participants that have given their own scale, right? And then we consolidate all of those ratings, and they will tell us basically that in the overall score that we have on Nestle, I don't know, maybe plastic pollution had a bigger weight than obesity, or vice versa. We're not deciding that. It's really the common rating that are deciding that. And then we have a more sophisticated process where we give more weight to the most informed people. So if you've read and rated more analyses on obesity or Nestle, you're supposed to be more knowledgeable about the topic. And then when you vote, when you do your rating, you will get a higher weight into the overall calculation than someone else who has never read about that. And so this is how we basically affect and weight the various impacts and the various topics within one company, and end up having a global consolidated score that is basically
adding up all the negative and positive topics with a weight for each of them to calculate the end result.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And the topics that you're rating on are SDGs, as I understand, or the SDGs. Do you find that more SDGs are sourced or used than others when rating a company? And does it vary on company to company as which ones are looked at and analyzed?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, we're only using SDGs as a reporting tool, so they really come at once the research process is finished, this is when the SDGs are being added up as a reporting framework. But still, what we see is that when we do the mapping and ask analysts to actually attach their research to one SDG, most of them, there's a huge disparity in the number of analyses that we have depending on the SDG. So, for instance, SDG number 12, responsible production and consumption, is the one that receives the highest number of analyses. The number 13 as well, climate action, is a one where a lot is being written about. But if you go to number 17, for instance, partnership for the goals, or even number 16, peace and strong institutions, those two ones, for instance, are much less used, just because also they were probably goals that were more designed for the public sector, and it is a bit more complex for people to document and research impacts those companies might have on strong institutions, for instance. So sometimes it's related to corruption. So it has to go back to real, business topics in a way that are then being related to those SDGs. But not all the SDGs are equal, and depending on your activity, you might, cover 10, 12, 15 SDGs. Sometimes you can cover only 4 or 5 if you're a mono-product type of company and do only one thing. Then very often many of those SDGs will not be relevant to your business. And so we don't want to have like the 17 SDGs being covered for every company. Rather, we just talk about what is important for each company, and then we map that to SDGs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, not every company touches on every SDG, right? That makes complete sense. But on the ones that they do touch on, do you have your analysts agreeing typically on some of them? Say women in the workplace, right? Do you see all of your analysts coming up with sort of similar opinions across the board, or do they differ from time to time?
Oh, they do differ, and we like that. This is what we want. We want to have a diversity. But what we need to try to avoid is some gaps in the coverage, and so that's also where the artificial intelligence gets into the picture. Because if someone writes about, let's say, the impact of Coca-Cola on plastic pollution again, but then nobody has written the similar analysis on the impact of Nestle on plastic pollution, then you will give a bad score to Coca-Cola for that specific topic and not take that into account for Nestle, and so you create a distortion if you do that. So it's very important that we organize the coverage, and what we've done is that we've mapped all the important themes that we want to see covered for every industry, and make sure that each company within the industry got all of those themes covered in I would say in a consistent way, so that we don't have those kind of distortions appearing over time. But then within that framework, then of course each analyst can come with slightly different angles, and we encourage actually that, because this is how we got insightful analysis. People that come and that try to add value. We're not just summarizing existing information, we're creating analysis. So analysts come with their opinion, and they have to defend that opinion. But it's okay that two different analysts will come with different opinion and have to defend. And then at the end of the day, this is the raters that will do the rating, and this is how we will reconciliate all of that.
Mm-hmm. Now, the companies that are being rated, do they ever have any inputs on things that they've been rated on, or do they change their business practices after seeing maybe how they're being rated by Impact? Have you had any of that?
I think so far it's a bit too early for us to be on the radar of the very large companies that we're rating. The day we get there, and the day one of them complains that their score is not fair, then probably we can open up the bottle of champagne, right? It means that we made some progress. I think it's a bit too early now for companies to really start worrying or being happy with how they've been analyzed on the platform. What we've seen already is investors and sometimes even private investors calling us and saying, oh, you know, after what I've read on the platform on that company, I've called my banker so that, you know, I make sure I never invest in that company anymore. And then so we know that this is already having some kind of effects through, again, the investment work. But for sure, I mean, the idea at one point in time is that when this platform and if this platform is really successful and at positioning itself as a mainstream reference, then corporates are going to be watching at that and are going to be willing to act so that their score improve into the platform. And this is exactly what we want. We want companies to change. And again, not just to change their practices, but to change their core business. If the issue is with their core business, then the company should be pushed to rethink their core business.
Mm-hmm. And absolutely, I mean, being on the radar of these large companies would be fantastic. Although it does seem like there have been changes. You know, we have Larry Fink of BlackRock sending out his CEO letter to have companies change their business practices, right? But it takes these large companies time to change. They're big ships, right? So they can't just change one day to the next. With the analysis that's being written, how far back does it go, and when does it become relevant or irrelevant to be written on a company? And then at the same time as they change these companies and make new initiatives, at what point can you really quantify or measure whether or not they're making impacts for the better?
So here again, I think this is one of the benefits of this kind of approach is that we're a lot more reactive when it comes at integrating changes that are happening at the level of the company. The traditional ESG data providers, what they do, as I mentioned, is that they send those questionnaires to companies. They're very heavy questionnaires, so you send them, normally they send them every 12 months, sometimes every 18 months. And companies will answer, you know, based on the last financial exercise, which means that very often the score you get is basically, you know, telling you what was happening at the company level 2 years ago. So it's not very reactive, and for some of us that have been in the space for a long time and have been there when the Dieselgate happened in 2015, you know, one of the huge frustration is that when the fraud was known and Volkswagen was recognized as having, you know, distorted the anti-pollution system, the ESG score remained at a very good level for months and months and months after that happened, because it took those companies 12 months to actually resend the questionnaire, reassess their scores and change the scores. And what we do with Impact is that every single day we got new ratings, every single day we got new analysis to be published on the company. So if any major change happens at the company level, is likely to be documented within a few days or a few weeks on the platform and integrate the score of the company in a quite reactive way. And we're not looking at future impact the same way we're not looking at impact that, you know, happened a long time ago and have no longer any consequences. So we're not there to complement, you know, the people maybe who got sick because they used whatever chemical 30 years ago. As long as that chemical is no longer around, we're not documenting that anymore. But what we're interested in is the current impact that companies are having on the planet and society. Not 20 years ago and not in 20 years. What they do now and how that is providing bad impacts or positive impact to the world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I think we're coming to the end here. I think we have about 5 minutes or so left, but you know, there is some interest about getting involved with Impact and becoming an Impact analyst. Can you speak? I know you mentioned a little bit about the program, but how people get involved and you know, what that process looks like, and then, you know, what I know there is some sort of monetary benefit to the individual as well. Can you speak to some of that and how that process works?
Sure. So yeah, as I was mentioning, the certification program is really for us a very central piece in the entire process. This is not only how we recruit new analysts, but this is also a very important part of our mission in terms of making sure every single citizen has the right skills and can ask himself or herself the right questions when it goes to understanding the impact of companies. And so this certification program is now entirely, in a way, automated. And so it's very easy. We organize every single day 2 or 3 sessions. There is a webinar that lasts for 1.5 hours. You can register to the webinar on the platform. It's entirely free. Just through the webinar already, you will probably, I hope, find some interesting learning. If you want to stop there, then you want to stop there. Again, it's entirely free. There is nothing to pay. You just attend the webinar that you want. And after the webinar, if you decide that you want to engage in the certification program, then you just start doing your assignments. So you basically have 4 assignments. The first one is very easy. You go to the platform and you read and rate some existing analysis. This is how we make sure that you start to understand what is actually an impact analysis just by reading your peers' work, right? And then when you've done that, you can start publishing your own analysis. And you have to do 3 different ones on different companies and different topics. And every time you will be submitting one, it will be reviewed by one of our instructors, and you will receive a detailed feedback on, what you did good, what should be improved, what needs to be changed if you want to get published. And you have to successfully, publish 3 analyses before you get certified. Once you get certified, it probably means that you know what is expected from you, and then you can start publishing analysis on the platform and being paid. We pay 30 euro for each analysis. An analysis is maximum 2,000 characters, so it's about half a page on one specific company, one specific topic. And then you will still receive, feedback on a permanent basis from a review team in case your analysis is not up to the standard and cannot be published. Our goal is to publish high quality, and so we will help people to get there as much as we can, because we want, all of that work that we do in terms of reviewers and that the analysts do in terms of being analysts, we don't want that to be wasted. So most of the time we keep working with analysts until they get it right. Today we have around 300 people that have successfully become impact and certified impact analysts. And as I was mentioning, we have around 2,000 people now every week that are joining the program.
It's fantastic, really growing rapidly. Like I said, we're coming to the end here. Is there anything, Bertrand, that you'd like to add that we didn't cover today, or you want to leave us as a final remark?
Well, I would like to thank you, all of us, for your time and for having listened to this webinar. I think we're in a very key moment in the history of the economy and of human beings. This is probably a very challenging time, and with the COVID, it's probably even that's even more the case. But we got the chance to really build something better, and we know that measurement of impact is a central part of that. What gets measured gets managed. We can all play our part, either as writers or raters or readers. This information is made by you, but it's also made for you. So whatever is the type of engagement or actions you want to have with the platform, I would really encourage you to use that in your daily life as citizen. It has been made for you, it's free. And the more of us are using that, and the more efficient it would be to change the world.
Great. Thank you so much, Bertrand. I'd like to thank you for taking the time. I know out of your busy schedule at the end of the week to speak with us, but super engaging and interesting conversation today to learn more about impact and what you guys are doing. Hopefully one day you will be the Wikipedia of the impact space. Excited to watch your story and your company grow. I want to thank everybody else for joining today. I'm sorry for the late start, but as always, it's fun to get everyone together and connect about the impact space around the world. We do have some upcoming Impact from Home events in the next few weeks, so please check that out. They're going to be posted. See that they were just posted on the chat. You can look there, and always visit our website at Net Impact Amsterdam and take a look. Please join us at more of these events and meetings. We're as involved as we can during this COVID time, and really wanting to get everybody together. So again, thank you, Bertrand, and thank you everybody for attending the event, and we'll hope to see you next time.
Sure. Thanks a lot for your time. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Take care.